It is the last of October, which means today I am announcing October's winner for our monthly giveaway. And that person is podcast user AIRWOLF69. And their Instagram handle is Ellie Hall Author. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. So I will go ahead and reach out to you via Instagram. Thank you so much for the wonderful rating and review. And for November, if you didn't win, don't worry. We are doing giveaways every single month. So you can always be entered and enter again to win. All you have to do is just rate and review the podcast. And who knows, you may be next month's winner. Hey, you guys, it's Bethany. Now, probably from the title, you have realized that I have recently found out I have a pretty bad mold infection. And moving forward, I know my regular listeners are used to listening to my Monday episodes being bites of knowledge and them being a shorter 20-minute to 30-minute episodes versus my Wednesday releases where I interview experts in the field and so forth. Wednesdays will still be the same as far as interviews, but I thought I would do a little pause on the bites of knowledge and just perhaps on Mondays instead update you on my mold progress. This is all really new to me. And so, yeah, I feel like this could, at the very least, just benefit myself, more of a vocal documentation of what's happening almost in real time, my symptoms, side effects, just jotting things down instead of journaling, more of a verbal journal, if you would say. And I thought that, like, should I tell my followers? Should I not? But it's been one of those things where my life is so much part of my job and my job is so part of my life. And I know I need to have boundaries and I do. But it has been affecting my health for years, come to find out, but I just didn't know it. We think it's been years. My naturopath thinks it could have been since I was a young teenager, maybe 10 years old even. So there's no real way of knowing, but I just thought I would take you along this journey. And for this first episode, I would kind of backtrack a little bit as to perhaps some causes of how I got the mold. First of all, I want to tell you that it's not by anything I ate. Mold is accumulated by typically what you breathe in. And in my case, it is definitely how I accumulated it is by the air. And I'm like out of breath, maybe one of the side effects. So let me backtrack for a while. Most of you guys know my gut health history. And I felt like I was doing pretty good regarding that. I would still get a lot of IBS upsets, like regardless of what I was eating. Like I would be eating all the right things, doing all the right stuff, and I would still get like a flare up for a few days or like sometimes even a week. And I'm just like, man, maybe I just like have IBS. Like this is it. Definitely not where I was. And I have like basically eliminated 95% of all of my ailments that I was experiencing, thankfully. But it honestly really all started, I didn't start feeling good after I got COVID in 2020. So this is about 5 years ago now. And I've never since felt the same. And I thought, oh my gosh, maybe I have long COVID. And who knows, maybe I still have the spike protein in me. I don't know. Again, this is just me sharing my experience and documenting. So I am not claiming I know everything. I am not claiming I know what's happening. I'm just sharing my thoughts, information, what I've been told, and just current reactions. So yeah, back to 2020. If you've been following me for a while, obviously COVID happened. I had moved away, moved back into my parents' house as I had sold my condo and I wanted to live closer again. While I was looking for a home to buy, I was living with my parents temporarily for about, I can't remember, like 6 to 9 months. It was a good while. I was living out of a suitcase. Most of my stuff was in storage. And it was the house that I had grown up in since I was 4 years old. My parents bought the house when I was 4, and I am 35 now. But the house that my parents bought, it is so old. It is a Victorian old, I think it was built in the 1800s. And it's one of those homes they bought as a fixer-upper. It was falling apart. It kind of still is falling apart after 30 plus years of them living in it. And they wanted to fix it up themselves. They didn't have the money to fix it up like right away when they first moved in. So we moved in when I was 4. And anyways, I'll get back to that. I feel like I'm all over the place. But in 2020, I went back. So I'm like 30, 31 at the time. And I lived with my parents. And that's when I got COVID. My dad got it first, then my mom, then me. And I know now COVID nowadays is just the typical flu, thankfully. But during 2020, like it was pretty gnarly, right? Like the first strain of COVID was pretty bad. So I was sick in bed for a month, which typically I think a lot of people got it for maybe 2 weeks. I had it for at least a month, literally in bed. And still for like a couple years, I was like, I still don't feel right. Like I could never go back to exercising. Again, for those that followed me, I would leg press at the gym. I would show you like 2018, 2019, I would leg press 300 pounds. I would arm curl 20-pound weights. Like I would be at the gym all the time, have tons of energy. And then after 2020, I felt like I couldn't even do yoga for 5 minutes. And I just never felt the same. And I thought, oh, maybe I don't know. I've had long COVID and then I just never got back into working out like I used to. And there's all these speculations of people have told me, oh, it's just age. It's just happened because of age, or it happened because you have the spike. It's so many different things and different narratives, which I won't go into. And that's why I think it's also very important to just like kind of drown out the noise. So I'm living with my parents, and when I found out I had mold, I was like, maybe it's all related. Maybe it's the room that I was staying in at my parents' house when I got COVID, and it was just a storm. And then again, like literally yesterday, I had a 2-hour-long meeting with my new naturopath, and she specializes in mold. And she was like, well, let's go back at your history. Like, when did let's go back like way back. And I was like, well, yeah, I grew up in a home that was very moldy. And when I say like moldy, a lot of people don't even know that they're living in mold. I knew I was living in mold, and my parents are definitely one to not really, I don't want to say they don't care, but they don't think it's a big deal. Like if you have a parent and they don't think something is a big deal and that you're just overreacting and you're just hypersensitive, yada, yada, like those are my parents, God bless them. And so the shower that we would shower in before they remodeled, I would say I showered in this moldy bathroom for at least 10 years, maybe more. And the reason I know it was moldy is because there was black mold in the shower, in between the tiles. Like you could literally see the mold. There was no hiding it. Like if there was mold coming up in between the tiles, black mold also, then who knows how much mold was behind the tiles, behind the walls. Also, my bedroom shared the wall with that bathroom. So my bedroom was on the other side of the bathroom. And so growing up, we would shower in a steamy, hot bathroom in mold for, again, at least 10 years. The kitchen, my parents recently remodeled their kitchen after 30 plus years of living in there. Up until then, there was mold in the tiles in the kitchen, and my mom would just cook like on the tiles. Like money they wanted to, save up. And I did not come from a wealthy family, mind you. Like we ate rice and beans for dinner for weeks on end. We had peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for lunch, and we would sometimes have pancakes. We would eat out of a can, like on a regular basis. This was my life for just growing up. And I didn't know, like, when you're young, you don't know if you're poor or what the financial situation is of your parents. Like, you're just kind of oblivious. Thankfully, I didn't pay attention. My mom tried to make it as fun as possible. But all that to say is that they did not remodel this home right when we lived in, like right when we moved in. Again, they're still remodeling it. And so I also think, I just want to say, like, my parents are amazing, and they put efforts into putting me into softball, into dance, into theater, and like my other two siblings as well, my brother and sister. So they put their money in other places to make sure that we were happy, right? So I want to just make that clear. And the house just was not a big priority, especially the mold. And so as I'm speaking with this new naturopath, and she's like, oh, this could very well be accumulative since inception of this home, since I was 4 years old. And I have never been tested for mold until just recently, which I'll get into as to why I even thought to get tested. But so all that to say, my current situation, it happened, nothing from what I ate. We just moved into a new build, nothing from our current home or my previous home. That was pretty brand new and remodeled. I mean, that was very clean. There was no sign of mold at all. I really think, looking back, I think this may have been slowly accumulating in my body. And then I lived in an apartment above the garage that probably had mold in it too. So who knows? We will never know, right? But I do know that the home that I lived in had mold. So it's kind of past that point. Now it's just addressing the issue. Of course, I'm doing all of the things which I have been for years, as far as clean air purifiers, eating a clean diet, which I know can help mitigate the effects. I know that if you eat a moldy piece of fruit, you're not going to get mold. I have sought professionals and asked them that question and done all the research, and you probably will get sick, right? Your stomach's not going to feel good, and you'll probably be sick for a couple of days, but that's not how you accumulate mold in your body, by eating a piece of moldy substance. So I do think also that COVID perhaps may have stirred up the mold that was already inside me, and then it kind of maybe released something. Again, I don't know. This is my own hypothesis, or my own theory, but I think that it could have stirred something up that was already in there, and then it just flared it up. Now, we'll see. Who knows? We may never know. And then I think the reason too is why it got prolonged so much is that I have been taking good care of my health. Like, I am doing all of the things. So I think it didn't get as bad as I think it could have gotten bad sooner, right? But I've dragged it out, quote, dragged it out for lack of a better word, because I have been so healthy. But I mean, I'm 35 now, and I think it gets worse. And so now, I know I'm jumping all around, but I feel like I just want to give you some of the backstory as to maybe perhaps how this all happened. Now, I haven't been feeling like well, or I would have like little weird bouts of like not feeling well for even like a day. And then the next day I'd be like on top of the moon, amazing, great energy. And then the next day I'd just like not feel good again. And it would be like this roller coaster thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm not doing anything different. It's not like I ate anything different or did anything, out of the ordinary. I'm like pretty status quo, but my energy would be all over the place. I'd feel weird. And the reason we thankfully found this mold, and something I have yet to tell you, is that the mold that they found is actually in my right lung. And this is very rare. Most people don't get mold in their lungs. I don't know, but obviously this is a very severe case. And so it's in my lungs, and I guess it's like a mold ball, and it's aspergillus. It's a form of aspergillus. And so back to the story. So I wasn't feeling well. So Rory, I was like, I think I need to go to the ER because like my whole left side was like going numb. And I'm like, I just like tingly and not like, I just don't feel right. Obviously, if your like left side is going numb, like first of all, you're thinking, okay, stroke, right? Like blood clot, something's happening. Went to the ER. They did all the tests. They checked things. They're like, nope, you don't have a blood clot. They even checked my blood work and they're like, you're actually healthy, which was frustrating. I mean, it was good. Like, okay, I'm good. I'm healthy. They're like, your labs are normal. You're fine. Like everything is in check. Electrolytes good. You don't have anemia. They literally said you don't have anemia. That was one of the things that I remember. And they're like, your protein level's good. Actually, my protein levels were a little higher than normal. It was a little above normal, but I eat a lot of protein. But they're like, you don't have a blood clot. Like they did all the things. They did some imaging too. And so I go back home and I'm like, okay, well, then why am I feeling this way? And then literally like within 4 or 5 days later after that ER visit, I'm like, I need to go back to the ER. Like I'm not feeling right. I was tingly. Like I couldn't concentrate. Like I felt almost like confused. And so we go back and they do all the tests again. And then they decide to do an x-ray of my chest. And they didn't do that the first time. So they do the x-ray and they see this mass like around my lungs. And they come back and they're like, well, this shows a sign of pneumonia. And I'm like, well, I'm not coughing. Like I don't have, I can breathe, right? Like I don't have any difficulty breathing. And they're like, okay, well, maybe like you should follow up with your doctor and get a CT scan to like get a better image because an x-ray only shows so much. It's a little bit cloudy. So like you should get a CT scan and that'll really like kind of make it more defined. So finally, it's like this is like a whole waiting game. If anyone is in the healthcare system, which I hate, by the way, your insurance, you have to wait and then you have to get approval. And then like the doctor visits, they're not open or they don't have openings for like another 2 weeks. It's just this whole runaround. Finally, I'm able to see my doctor and then she's able to put in a prescription to get a CT. And then I have to wait for the approval to get the CT. And then finally I get the approval. And then I have to make the appointment at the hospital to get the CT. And their next opening isn't until whatever date. And it's this whole thing. So I'm like, dang, I could like, honestly, this is a side note, whoever like makes this protocol up of like approvals needs to like find a workaround because people are probably dying because they're just waiting too long. Anyways, so I go in to get the CT and they also order some blood work as well. So I got the blood work done to test for fungus and for mold and infections. And I do a urine test. I do a saliva test. And came back that I had, an infection and both are pointing to the lungs. It took a while for the aspergillus test to come back because I think that they have to culture some stuff, culture the blood. Anyways, that came back positive. I don't think it's not like a super high amount, I think. So I'm very thankful for that. Excuse me. They found the mold. They said it's in the upper part of my lung versus the lower part. So they said that is a good thing. They said if it was in the lower part, I would probably be in the hospital like coughing. So the mold accumulation is in the upper part. And they said to, and then they referred me to a lung specialist. And anyways, I've seen so many specialists and I'm still waiting to see another doctor. So I'm like in limbo right now, but the lung specialist did say that he would put me on like some antifungals to try and hopefully reduce the mold and kill it off. But he also said people with mold in their lungs, he said that I don't want to say most likely, but he says a lot of the time they will actually have lung surgery, which like freaked me out. I'm like crying in the doctor's office. And they're like, they actually remove part of your lung with the mold attached to it. And Rory, he's just so sweet. And he's like, don't worry. Like, I know people with, part of their lung removed. They're fine. They're functioning. So, always trying to like soothe me. But of course, I'm like, I don't want to have lung surgery. Like, it's like having open heart surgery, in my opinion. Probably not the same. But anyways, I'm just freaking out. And I was like, well, can we try like the antifungals first before we have to do surgery? And so he referred me to another specialist and gave me some like an antifungal to try in the meantime while I wait. I tried it and I had a really bad reaction to it. Now, again, after my appointment with my naturopath, she thinks that the antifungal, I didn't have a bad reaction. She thinks that it was die-off symptoms, but I like had to go off of it. Like I couldn't, like my eyes actually got super swollen, itchy. My lymph nodes in my neck got super swollen. You could literally look at my neck from like the average person and be like, dang, your neck is swollen. Like it was big. And so I didn't know what was happening. And again, I'm like no mold expert, but obviously since finding out, I've been doing all the research, asking all the professionals, the contacts that I have, and it's crazy what mold can do to your body. And die-off symptoms are one thing, but just having mold in general, those symptoms are crazy as well. So anyway, I took the antifungals. I talked to the doctor, told him what was happening, and he's like, okay, well, just wait to see the other specialist that I referred you to. In the meantime, just stop. So I ended up stopping. The symptoms did subside, but I still kind of feel them. And the symptoms that I was experiencing, and I'm writing this all down, I'm documenting it. The symptoms were sharp pain in my chest, like almost like needles in my chest, which makes sense because that's where the mold is. Chest pressure, severe swollen neck, throat, lymph nodes, swollen eyes. I had mentioned I had crust on my eyes, like in the morning time. I even got checked. I was like, do I have an eye infection? And they were like, no. Like I went to the eye specialist, and that was, again, later on, come to find out, that's like detox symptoms of mold is like you'll get crust in your eyes. It's like coming out of you. I had a very heavy metal taste in my mouth, like very heavy metal taste. I had also like static. I forgot to write this down. I'm like reading off my list here, but I had static in my mouth and like electricity feeling, almost like if you were to get a sweater out of the dryer and you get that static electricity shock. Like that's kind of how I felt in my mouth and in my eyes. I got static and it was just weird. And I even have like, this may be TMI, but we're all friends here, but I was feeling static and electricity like in my vaginal area too. And later on, like I'm sharing all this information with my naturopath. She goes, oh yeah, that's totally normal for like mold. And I'm like, what the heck? I had sinus pressure, headaches, just a general like fatigue and weakness like no other. If anyone is listening to this and has experienced mold or is familiar with it, then you're probably like, yeah, like you are fatigued like no other. And so those were like the quote side effects, but I do believe that it was like die-off symptoms from this treatment here. So I am like, your mind is like going like, what do you do? Like, am I having an allergic reaction or is this just symptoms? So I know I do need to continue to proceed with treatment. And I'm just, again, we're trying to figure out the right method to go. I know that these next 6 months, the protocol for the next 6 months is to, let me say for the next 3 months, is to try treatment, like a heavy treatment. They're not sure if it's going to be intravenous through an IV. Again, I'm still waiting to get the final the final whatever, like of what they're going to do or recommend. But the options are some intravenous treatment or some oral treatment, or maybe it's a combination. I'm also, again, I'm doing some conventional and also doing some non-conventional. So I'm integrating both here. And I definitely have faith in the Lord. I just want to say that I am glad that we found it. I'm obviously I don't want to have mold, but I'm glad we caught it, And I think that this could have been maybe the root cause of a lot of other issues that maybe I have just been experiencing. I do want to say, for any longtime listeners, if you've been following me for a while, if you remember back in 2021 at my other house, I was in bed for like a month. And the reason is because I was having neurological pain where I felt like I was being shocked. I was like, I'm being shocked all over my body. If anyone remembers that, and I did more of a detailed like stories about it and I talked about it. Anyways, I went to like a nerve specialist and they're like, no, you're fine. Like, we think it's just anxiety. So they diagnosed it as anxiety. I was like, well, I was in bed for a month straight with shocking waves all over my body. The reason I'm bringing this up is because this was in 2021. And now looking back, I think that was maybe some mold coming about. Maybe I that's what I think. And so it leads me to believe that this has been something that has been maybe just long accumulating. Again, I don't know. But so it's just weird because mold, from all the experts that I have spoken with, are like, mold is so weird and tricky, and like that the symptoms, like one day you will feel beat and in bed, like you can't even think. And then literally the next day you're like, let's go run a marathon. Like, I feel fine. And I'm like, yeah, like there's some days where I'm like, dang, my digestion's like great. I have energy, like just all of the things. And I'm like, maybe I was just like in a funk. And I think that people are not recognized for mold because on the outside they may look fine. And I kind of didn't even think that mold would be like on the table for me, just because of my lifestyle, of the homes that I was in, from the home I currently live in to my previous, to my condo in 2020. So, but again, like, I'm no expert, and this could have been going on since I was, 5 years old. I have no idea. Candida is something many struggle with on a regular and ongoing basis, and I can certainly relate to anyone suffering right now, as I have had my own bout of it. I honestly don't think people even know they have it, because Candida is just not a vaginal yeast infection. It can be, but it can go beyond that. It can be in your esophagus, your mouth, skin, and of course, the gut. And that's where Candida can live and thrive and really overgrow. So how do you even know you have Candida? Well, here are some symptoms to look out for: chronic sinus infections, UTIs, digestive issues, food allergies, depression, bad breath, hormone imbalance, skin rashes, weakened immune system, fatigue, brain fog, and even joint pain. I was actually experiencing several of these issues, and so that's when I looked into this a bit more and discovered that Shilajit was known to help combat Candida without any side effects. Shilajit is an ancient health food packed with over 85 bioavailable vitamins and minerals, and has been used safely for centuries to boost health and balance the body. The unique aspect of Shilajit is that it's naturally high in levels of fulvic acid, which are essential for the efficient uptake of nutrients into our cells. This powerful compound is also highly antifungal and antimicrobial. In fact, to quote a study, Shilajit not only helps to overcome physiological activities of humans, but simultaneously protects the body by inhibiting various pathogenic organisms of the respiratory and gastrointestinal tract. End quote. Another study found that out of 4 antifungal substances used to treat Candida albicans, fulvic acid was deemed the most effective and displayed the quickest killing action. This is some wild stuff, and I am all about it. However, not all Shilajit is created equal, and you have to be careful of the source and purity. Black Lotus Shilajit is far different than other brands because, one, they source their Shilajit from Alti Mountains, not the Himalayan mountains, which are actually polluted, come to find out. Plus, they are fully transparent with their lab testing. They test for metals, mold, and they pack all of their products in glass by them, not third party. So they have full control over the quality control and don't leave their products in the hands of a third party. So many Shilajit companies out there are charging way too much and for a low quality product. And since Black Lotus is a family-run business, they understand the importance of making things affordable while not compromising on quality. And I personally have been taking Black Lotus's Shilajit tablets for the past 3 months, just one under my tongue each morning. And let me tell you, it tastes horrible. I'm not gonna lie or sugarcoat this, okay? But it tastes as if you were eating black tar or a rubber tire. It's not the best tasting. However, I have actually gotten used to it, and the tablets make it a lot easier. So you don't even have to let it sit under your tongue if you don't want to. You can just simply swallow it like you would a pill. But Black Lotus also has some other amazing products like honey. So the honey is actually black and it's sourced from ethical beekeepers, and they infuse the Shilajit in the honey. So it looks really cool and it's a lot easier to consume that way also. They also have other things like Shilajit resin and they have a tincture. So there are many methods you can consume it and get the benefits from Shilajit. And again, I personally take the tablets and it's just great. And the honey's great in tea. So just PSA, if you want to try Black Lotus's Shilajit, I have a code for you and you can use code DIGEST at checkout and that will get you 15% off. Just go to blacklotusshilajit.com and that's spelled SHILAJIT and use code DIGEST. All right, you guys. So I have been making these special gummies and I have to give you the recipe. So get a pen and write this down. These gummies are so addicting and all you need are 3 main ingredients. They're not only good for the gut, but they can also help aid in hair growth, immune function, skin health, and they taste like a creamy ice cream pop you literally can just pop in your mouth. And all this is from the colostrum I add. So if you haven't guessed by now, these are creamy colostrum milk gummies that literally are like a pillow in your mouth. You can add a touch of honey if you want, or keep them 100% sugar-free for all my keto and low-carb friends. I'm sure you guys have heard me talk about Armor Colostrum over and over by now, and for good reason. It's been clinically shown to help guard against inflammation and everyday toxins and pollutants. Colostrum intake has also been linked to fewer respiratory tract and GI infections in children and adults. In fact, there are over 5,000 published studies documenting the benefits of colostrum and its ability to optimize health from when we are born all the way through our elder years. But Armor Colostrum is different from others on the market, and it's something I started taking back in March 2023, long before all the hype. They use a proprietary cold chain biopotent technology that distills over 200 functional nutrients, guaranteeing the highest bioactive integrity and bioavailability. Another thing I personally love about this company is that they only use the excess colostrum from grass-fed, pasture-raised, happy cows that are no longer needing it to supply their young. So you know you're not taking away from animals that need it. Only the surplus colostrum is used, and Armra makes sure they are getting only the best from healthy USA cows from family farms. Okay, so here's the creamy colostrum gummy recipe. Just get 2 tablespoons of grass-fed gelatin, 1 cup of your milk of choice, dairy or non-dairy, 1 tablespoon of honey, which is optional, and 1 tablespoon of Arma Colostrum's unflavored grass-fed colostrum. And you can save 20% if you use code DIGEST at checkout on their website. It's tryarmra.com. Again, that's code DIGEST, and that will save you 20%. So what you're gonna do with the ingredients is first you're gonna pour the milk into a small saucepan, sprinkle the gelatin over the top and allow it to bloom for 5 minutes. If you're using honey, you're gonna add that now, and then you're also gonna add Arma colostrum to the pan. You're gonna bring it to a medium heat while whisking. Just be sure not to boil it, just a medium heat. Now, once the milk is slightly warmed and everything is dissolved, just remove the pan from the heat and pour into any mold of choice or a glass dish. Then place the dish or the molds into the fridge for at least 2 hours or until set. Once set, just pop the gummies out into an airtight container, and then you're just going to return it to the fridge to store it. If you are using one large dish, then you can cut them into squares or whatever shape you prefer. If you haven't tried Arma colostrum by now, here's your chance. You can save 20%. Just go to tryarmra.com and use code DIGEST to receive a special discount for my podcast listeners. That's tryarmra.com and use code DIGEST. Again, that's tryarmra.com and use code DIGEST at checkout. I shared kind of the backstory. I shared how they found out, and I shared, I didn't share my diet yet. So recommendations, I'm still on the fence. I may be going on some binders. I'm doing black seed oil. I did my own research and I talked it over with my naturopath, and she's like, yeah, keep doing it. So Fatty 15 was another one that I told her I was taking. I'm surprised that she actually was familiar with Fatty 15 just because it's a fairly new supplement, but thankfully it's being recognized. And so she's like, definitely do the Fatty 15. And definitely, keep doing, I'm also doing glutathione as a liposomal and black seed oil. And I've done a lot of research on black seed oil, and it's been known to tons of benefits beyond mold and fungus, like tons, like definitely look it up. But there's specific research on mold and fungus, and it's been known to kill aspergillus, which is what I have. So interesting, because I started doing that on my own after I found out, and I was getting, and I still get them, like the symptoms of the detox when I was on the antifungals. I get them now when I take black seed oil. Not as intense, for sure, not as intense, but I'll still wake up with like crusty eyes in the morning, and then I'll still get like that tingly shock feeling behind my eyes and in my tongue. And I'm like, okay, well then maybe like this black seed oil may be less intense, but it's like supernatural, that it can help. Because obviously there's studies to back it. And I want to also say that I have full confidence that the Lord can heal me miraculously, and he can work a miracle, and I can be a testimony. And I just want to throw that out there, that I know he has the capability to do that, and I can share that as a testimony on my platform. But I also know that God is sovereign and he is in control. And if he chooses that I have to go through other ways of healing or other methods, that he's provided those people in my lives, and he's provided these methods as well. And that maybe I need to be learning something through this pain, because in the end, he just wants us to trust him. And it's a very humbling experience, because this is another reason why I was like, well, do I share, publicly? But again, it's someone that's been in the wellness space for so long and doing all the right things, and then here you get sick, and like here you get mold. And I don't even say I'm sick. I rebuke that. But it's like, I'm human too. And it's not like I went and started like eating bad stuff and like kind of put this on myself. Like it was just something I breathed in. And, and I think it's also looked down upon and people are shamed, especially in the wellness space, if it doesn't even have to be mold related, but I see this all the time. I have friends in the wellness space and, they're on social media and they're like, oh, Bethany, like I have the flu right now and I can't even share that I'm sick because I get all these negative comments saying that, oh, I thought you were supposed to be this wellness person and now you're sick and have the flu. But, oh, I thought you were taking these supplements that were supposed to help. And it's sad because people shame others for just getting sick. And it's like, well, we're not God. We're not immune to anything. We're human. And we do what we can with what we have. Maybe we would be more sick all the time if we didn't take all the supplements or be so health conscious, right? People's immune systems are different. Their environment is different. Their stress level is different. Their workload is different. So I just think it's kind of a shame that people in the wellness space can't even say like, hey, I'm struggling right now because other people shame them and look down on them. And I just think that anyways, I just thought I would share that. And I am definitely not immune to anything. And the Lord is my strength. And, I know that when I am weak, He is strong. And so this is just going to be an interesting journey. And I decided to kind of take you along for the ride and just kind of have some updates, some mold updates, and just tell you how I'm feeling maybe week to week or every other week. I'm not sure yet. We'll figure it out. But for those that are joining me and listening, I want to say thank you. And thank you for your support on Instagram. And I will still be on Instagram. I got to show up. I will tell you, treatment is not cheap and a lot of it is not covered by insurance. Even if it is, I still have to pay a lot. And, because of that, I got to work. I got to pay the bills. I got to keep the lights on top of paying now for treatment. And so I still will be on Instagram and I still will be collaborating with brands and thankful for the brands that do still collaborate with me. And I'm thankful for the job that I have. And so your support in my reels, liking them, commenting, just being interactive, really does speak volumes. That is really the best way to support. It's free for you. It's easy. And, I stand behind everything that I do share on Instagram. Haven't changed anything. Regarding my diet, I did go over with my new naturopath what I was eating, like in detail. I told her all the supplements in detail. She really didn't have anything to say as far as change this or change that. She did say, she's like, well, you don't really eat a lot of greens. And I was like, yeah, they don't like agree with me. I don't like greens and like high fiber things. So she's cool. She didn't really push it. She was like, okay, well, if you're having a bowel movement every day, I guess there's no need to change anything. And I was like, oh, I definitely have at least one a day. And so she's like, okay. And then the supplements, I think she's going to actually add a few supplements. I'm still waiting to get that. Again, this is all new, but she didn't really say like, oh, don't take this or that of what you're taking. She's like, you're pretty spot on. I will say that I asked her, actually, I was like, regarding diet, is there anything I shouldn't be eating that would feed the mold? And she's like, well, things high in sugar. I was like, well, I don't eat things high in sugar anyways. Avoid it. What about gluten? I was like, I will eat maybe a piece of sourdough here and there or a piece of lavash, but it's not a daily or even weekly thing. And she's like, you shouldn't worry about that. It's fine. And she's like, I would definitely stay away from kombucha. And I was like, oh, I stopped that like in 2015, just from my whole other GI issues and like yeast overgrowth. And so she's like, oh, good. Well, you already know about kombucha. I was like, oh yeah, I know it's crap. And then so it was just like confirmation for me that I was doing everything right. And then she said, stay away from the probiotic Saccharomyces boulardii. I can't even pronounce it, but S. boulardii. It's a very popular probiotic that a lot of companies are pushing. I have talked about this so many times on my Instagram, on my podcast. I have a whole entire blog post about it on littlesipper.com, so I won't go into it. But for those that know, that's definitely not a good probiotic. That's why I chose Bacillus coagulans in my digestive support protein. And I told her, I was like, well, I take Bacillus coagulans. She goes, oh, that's a great probiotic. Continue to do that. She's like, stay away from nutritional yeast. I was like, cut that out a long time ago. And so it was really cool it was just good confirmation that I was doing everything right. I'd done all the right research and following things that she didn't really need to alter because I was already doing them. So that was really good. So, but for those that don't know, definitely don't have nutritional yeast, kombucha, or that probiotic because it's not good. Stick to Bacillus coagulans. I did tell her, I was like, well, I do have a lot of protein powder. And I said, one of them, I told her like the different types. And I was like, well, I do have pea protein. And she goes, oh, like I really don't recommend doing that because you can get bloated. And I said, well, I have my own pea protein line, protein powder. And I said, the reason I do so well with it and so many of my followers do is because we actually remove the lectins and we source it from Europe, which means no glyphosate because it's illegal to spray pea crops with glyphosate in Europe. So, and she was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Like normally, pea protein causes issues, but I can see why. She was like, well, just keep doing that if it doesn't cause issues. So she was super cool with that. And I was like, yeah, like other pea proteins are not the same. They have all the lectins that can cause issues. And so again, like she was cool with all that. And it's nice to have someone on your side and on your team. And I shout out to my podcast producer, Drake. He actually introduced me to this functional doctor. So I have a good like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 5 different doctors that are overseeing my case. So for anyone that feels like they want to share information, I appreciate it. However, I will say, please don't, respectfully, please don't give any advice to me, only because I feel like when you're in so deep, all this information coming from, all these random people from the internet, even though they have good intentions, it could be overwhelming. So I do have like 5 different experts, advising me as far as that. So again, I appreciate your support and caring. I think the best way really beyond like Instagram and supporting my posts and things like that, prayer is like the huge thing. So I'm reaching out for prayer right now and asking everyone that's listening, keep me in your prayers because I really hope that surgery is not needed and that the protocol and the treatment that I will go under, it will be very effective. We're going to try it for 3 months. And then in 3 months, we're going to retest. I'm going to get new blood work. I'm going to get another CT scan. And we're going to see if the mold has been reduced and if the treatment has been effective. If it has been reduced, we're going to continue with the treatment for another 3 months. But they said if it hasn't reduced, then that's when they'll probably make the decision after 3 months to do the surgery if it hasn't been reduced after checking for the second time. So again, it's all in God's hands. And I'm praying, y'all, I'm praying for a miracle. And I have no doubt that if God will just zap this mold and they'll check it and it'll be not only reduced, but gone in the name of Jesus. So, things happen. I've heard of miracles still happening today. Again, if it doesn't happen, I know like God is still in control. And so, but how cool would that be if that happened? So power of prayer. And I know not everyone listening is a believer. I know, this is not a Christian podcast, but I am very open about my faith. I am not pushing it on anyone listening, but I feel like this is my platform and I can still share, what I believe. And so yeah. So until then, next steps we'll see. And probably by the time this gets released, I'll probably be on some sort of treatment by then, and I can probably share a little bit more and maybe just like how I'm feeling and jot down, die off symptoms and like new protocols and tests and things like that. So thanks Thanks, guys, for listening. Thanks for sticking with me. And thank you for your support. Love you guys. And stay tuned for this Wednesday. We're coming out with an amazing interview that I know you guys will love. Thanks for listening to this episode of Digest This. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review in your podcast app to let us know. If you're ever wondering how you can support me and this podcast, sharing it with your friends and family is the best way. This is a Resonant Media production produced by Drake Peterson and edited by Mike Fry. To email the show, message us at digestthispod@gmail.com. See you next time. The content of this show is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for individual medical and mental health advice and does not constitute a provider-patient relationship. As always, talk to your doctor or health team first.